was first invited, they said that we had, I think, 30 minutes or so. Then it became 20 minutes. Then it was 15 minutes last week. Now I have 10. So I'm going to be flying through. I was told that this session was going to be about folks who actually study marijuana in the lab, and so you guys want to hear about some war stories. I guess we'll talk about that later. But right now, I guess what I'll do, looks like, I'm sorry, I never present without my own computer, and this is why. Okay, so we can't really see, but I should tell you that I'm trained in neuroscience and psychology, primarily studying laboratory animals, rats, and so forth. I got my postdoc and discovered that I didn't know anything about what I was really trained to do, because I was trained to study drug abuse in humans, but I didn't know much about drug abuse in humans when I got my PhD, but I knew a lot about drug abuse in rats. And so I did a postdoc in order to learn about human substance abuse. So the studies that I would describe today essentially is taking the human and placing them in the rat lab. And what you would see here, if we had a better LCD projector, you'd see on the top panel is our laboratory. On the top panel is a room in which we have participants come stay with us for about a month. On the bottom panel is the social area in which they socialize in, and we have cameras, microphones throughout the lab, so we watch everything. And there are about 4 people in the study at the same time. So it's the real world before the real world. This lab is older than the real world. But we are able to gather a plethora of data. The studies that I will describe today, of course, deals with marijuana, smoked marijuana, and also Dronabinol, or oral THC. Don raised a question earlier about whether or not Dronabinol, which is medically available and legal, whether or not it produces the same effects as smoked marijuana, which contains 400 or so other chemicals and about 70 of them cannabinoids. And that was a question I was interested in, not from a medical perspective, but just as a scientific sort of curiosity. And so I conducted a study in which we gave participants, these are marijuana smokers, they were just regular marijuana smokers, they smoked 7 days a week, 7 joints a day. So what I wanted to know was whether or not marijuana produced similar effects as oral THC in this population. We gave oral THC 4 times a day at 20 milligrams per dosing. So that's 80 milligrams a day, which is 16 times the recommended medical dose. And we also allowed them to smoke marijuana, 3.1% THC cigarettes, 4 times a day. We staggered the dosing so that to protect the blind. It was a double-blind study, and only one of these drugs were active at the same time. In this way, we could get a better idea about whether or not these drugs produce similar effect. Today, I will only show you data related to medical sort of use of marijuana, and that's food intake. This slide, if you focus your attention on the left side, that's the baseline, total daily caloric intake. You can see that they had an intake of about 2,000 calories per day during baseline conditions. But when you look in the middle or to your right of that graph, you can see marijuana and oral THC's effect. Marijuana is in the red, oral THC is in the blue. You can see they produce similar effects on total caloric intake, on food intake. And these are just the individual data, and just showing you data on ratings of appetite or hungry and the number of eating occasions. They correlate well in terms of their response to oral THC and their response to smoked marijuana. But that's not interesting. That was okay. That satisfied a scientific curiosity. Don conducted a study that was really interesting in terms of medical marijuana. What he showed was that you could actually administer oral THC and smoked marijuana in combination with the antiretroviral medication, and it would be fairly safe. And he also showed that these drugs increase food intake and weight in HIV-positive people. But that study was only one dose was tested, and the marijuana condition was not blinded. So we thought that we what we like to do was do a similar study, but bring folks into the laboratory and have them live with us for about a month and do the similar study, but using a range of marijuana doses and a range of oral THC doses. And that's what we did. Here is the design. The oral THC dosage was 5 milligrams and 10 milligrams given 4 times a day. The smoked marijuana dosage was 2% THC and 3.6% THC. The data, if you focus your attention on just the top, that's ratings of good drug effect. You can see the circles. The circles show in the middle circle will show you data from Dronabinol. The high dose is in the black, and you can see that the high dose significantly increased ratings of good drug effect. Over to the right, top right, you see good drug effects for smoked marijuana. That also increased good drug effects, and we had relatively fewer, if any, negative effects. Now, these data on the graph now shows you total daily caloric intake. Both oral THC and smoked marijuana increased food intake for these participants. These are the data from sleep, objective measures of sleep not altered, but subjective ratings of sleep was altered, significantly altered by smoked marijuana. Smoked marijuana in general increased subjective ratings of sleep, so participants felt like they slept better after they smoked marijuana. Now, even though the two drugs produce similar effects, there still remains the question of route of administration. As you all know, if you smoke marijuana, the effects are more rapid compared to oral THC. And not only that, when you smoke marijuana, you can titrate or you can control the effects a lot better. And I just want to show just a quick slide here of this. This is smoked marijuana, some data we collected. Peak onset of smoked marijuana occurs within 5 to 10 minutes. These are heart rate data. The larger dose is in the red. You can see marijuana nicely increases peak heart rate. This is oral THC. The onset of effect, peak effect, doesn't occur until an hour and a half after you have taken the drug. Similarly, good drug effects, peak effects occur within 10 minutes. Oral peak effects don't occur until an hour and a half after you've taken the drug. Now, what does this mean in terms of the real world, a real world example? This is related to being able to control the drug. Now, if you can't control the drug, you may think that you have, you don't have a sufficient amount of the drug on board. So if that's the case, you may continue to take more of the drug, and then when you start to feel the effects, you can't control it. And before you know it, you have a whole gut load of this stuff in, and the effects are being onset. And here's a real world example of that.
Is outraged over a 911 call. He wants to know why no charges have been filed against a police officer who admits to confiscating marijuana from suspects and then baking it in brownies. Both he and wife were full and high. They thought they'd overdosed and called 911. Overdose of what? Marijuana. So I don't know if they have something in it. Can you please come rescue? Can I get fever or anything? No, I think we're done.
She's laughing.
Okay. That's the only reason I give talks in order to show. Okay, take-home message. The drugs produce comparable effects in terms of food increases, and they also improve mood. And I didn't talk about this, but the drugs produce little deleterious effect, little effects on cognitive performance. Marijuana had the added benefit of improving subjective sleep. The data clearly suggests that marijuana offers potential alternative therapeutic option, particularly in light of the fact that you can titrate or control the effects of smoked marijuana better. Thank you for your time.